suggesting that they only talk with animals?
Well, I'm not suggesting it. Stephen Fry is suggesting that, not me.
Well, I suggest that Stephen Fry would never be as ridiculous as to suggest such a thing. He's far too intelligent to make such ridiculous claims.
I left that programme, I watched it for an hour, and the sense that I got at the end of it was that people from Chile were no better than animals.
So, from what you glean from watching this show, it's your belief that your average Chilean gentleman wakes up in the morning, refuses to speak to his wife, can't wait to get out of the house so he can get down to the canal or whatever they have in Chile and start having a chat with a dolphin. Is that right?
I don't think he chooses not to speak to his wife. I think he is incapable of human speech.
You think he just grunts at his wife and
just grunts at his wife? That the only communication they have, as you say, animalistic grunts. Occasionally he kind of waves his genitals towards to indicate that he wants to fornicate, and then once that's all done with, off down the beach, off down the pier, let's go and talk to the dolphins.
Do the Chilean women have this same affliction, do you think?
That wasn't revealed. I don't know.
No, you don't know, okay.
I don't know. No, I don't know. Now, totally different point, Nathaniel. Ofcom have been in touch again.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you recall, last week we had a communique threatening us, really, and suggesting that if we didn't put an end to our illegal statements, that we'd be shut down. Now, interestingly, as a follow-up, I've received a second communique saying that the problem isn't actually what we're saying. It's just that they can't stand the sound of your voice.
Is that better?
Your voice is, and I quote, unbroadcastable.
Well, I'm sorry that some buffoon at Ofcom thinks my voice is some kind of offensive nasal whine. I have to admit that there is that element to it, but you're stuck with it, Richard. I'm sorry, listeners, this is my voice. I can't change it or would want to.
You need elocution lessons.
I'll tell you what lessons you need.
You need to be taught how to speak correctly. You black country idiot.
You need to be able to taught how to interact with society, you Neanderthal.
You need to be taken into a dark room. You need to be lashed to a chair, and you need to be beaten shitless until you can learn to speak correctly.
Lashed to a chair?
I'll lash you to a chair, and I'll beat you to within an inch of your life until you can start to speak clearly and precisely, and, as I do, without any accent.
I'll endeavour to make my voice more palatable, and I'll endeavour to make my words more clear.
Good. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the part of the show where we talk about movie news and Hollywood developments. NASA are making every effort to ensure that nobody leaves the screenings of new release Apollo 18 thinking that it is actually real. Don't worry, NASA. We didn't think the moon landings were real, so why the hell would we believe this was genuine?
Proving there's life in the old corpse yet, Fox Studios have confirmed a new version of Frankenstein is in the pipes. This time shot in super duper excitingly exciting real 3D. We couldn't be less interested if we tried. Sneak preview screenings of upcoming sibling rivalry UFC Fightathon Warrior are scheduled for this very weekend. Expect Darren Aronofsky to be less than impressed.
When the Coen brothers announce a new movie, it's always cause for celebration. Except when they state that their new movie is set to focus on the folk music scene in 60s New York. Come on, Coens, give us No Country for Older Men, you miserable bastards.
Right, people, I'm sure you're all getting used to the format by now, but just in case you are new to passive-aggressive film reviews, this is the part where we select a movie that's on current release, and this week we're going to discuss Cowboys and Aliens. A brief synopsis for you. Daniel Craig stars as Jake Lonergan, a stoic outlaw in Arizona sometime in the late 19th century, who wakes up with no memory and some kind of metal device on his wrist. When he arrives in the town of Absolution, I'll say that again, Absolution, the sheriff discovers he's wanted and attempts to ship him off for a reward. That's when the aliens attack, bombing the town and capturing locals before flying off into the night. Lonergan's bracelet activates as a weapon, and suddenly he's the only one capable of defeating these things. He joins a rescue party led by a grumpy Civil War veteran named Dollarhide, played by Harrison Ford, and they all set off to find out what happened to their loved ones. What did you think of it, Richard?
I was torn, really, Nathaniel. I quite enjoyed the Western bit of the film. Obviously, given the title, this is Cowboys and Aliens, so this is a movie in two halves. And I quite enjoyed the Western side of it.
Yeah.
Not so much the sci-fi thing. Now, I've got to get something off my chest here.
Go on.
Every review that I've read and every review that I've heard seems to make much mileage out of how original this is. The idea of blending together science fiction and the Western.
I thought it was.
You thought that was original?
I did, yeah.
Well, I would like to point you in the direction of Joss Whedon's ill-fated TV show, fabulous TV show, incidentally, Firefly, and the spin-off movie Serenity. Serenity, the movie that quite often tops polls when people are asked what the best science fiction movie of all time is, beating out Star Wars, Blade Runner, Aliens, etc.
Well,
I'd also make mention of Michael Crichton's Westworld from the mid-70s with Yul Brynner. The plot of that one is an amusement park, and one of the areas in the amusement park is a themed area called Westworld, which is the Old West that is populated by androids. I mean, you can't really get more sci-fi meets Western than that.
Absolutely.
So the idea that this is original, I'm sorry.
Well, thanks for pointing that out. I've learned something. Thanks for not playing the research card. But, yeah, it hasn't even got originality going for it then, this movie.
I normally would, of course, berate you for your lack of knowledge. But the fact that so few people seem to make this connection and be aware of it, I'm kind of giving you a pass on this one.
We're not all as learned as you, though, Richard.
Well, not everybody can be a fountain of knowledge.
Indeed not.
Of course. So you've got that kind of. For me, there was the Western stuff was great. The science fiction stuff not too good. I had a real problem with Daniel Craig.
Why?
Because he looks like a butchered pig's carcass.
No, you're having a laugh.
That has been left out in the sun for far too long.
He's a butchered pig's carcass that an awful lot of people find attractive, Richard.
He's not a good-looking man.
Oh.
In fact, I found him a repulsive presence.
Well, you find most people repulsive, there's nothing new there.
I didn't find Clint Eastwood repulsive.
We know that as well.
So, I think that's a false statement.
Glad to hear you admit it.
But
back to the film, I don't want you divulging it too much.
It made me cross that people were swooning about him as the tall, dark, handsome stranger.
Guilty as charged.
But he looked like he'd been hit around the face by a shovel.
He's not. It's not typical beauty, Richard, that we're talking about. We're talking about that real rugged manliness. He's not an absolute picture of divine beauty. No, he's not.
He looks like roadkill.
Well, he's roadkill that a lot of people want to have sex with, Richard.
Do you want to have sex with him, Nathaniel?
I wouldn't be as crude as that. After a couple of dates and a couple of bottles of wine.
I thought you were going to say a couple of pints.
Well, maybe a couple of pints, who knows. But I wouldn't be adverse to the idea, but not too quickly, of course. One has to have standards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Harrison Ford, of course, is in the movie, and he made. I thought he was a genuine highlight. I thought he made for a good, cantankerous old blowhard. Though I have to say, that can't be much of a stretch for him in terms of acting, because that is what he's like in real life. What did you think of Harrison?
Harrison Ford, no, I've got little positive to say about the film, Richard. Harrison Ford, if you just want to bring that subject up, I thought he was a tepid, watered-down version of Indiana Jones, really.
Oh.
He is, he's the same sort of character, as you say, cantankerous, meant to be a bit rebellious, but he didn't have any other wit or charisma. I think you've got the hit nail on the head, Richard. He's just in it for the money. He's just banging and flogging an old horse.
You think so?
I think so.
It's quite a coup, isn't it, really, to get a movie where you've got, James Bond and Indiana Jones or Han Solo, whichever one you prefer.
Yeah.
That's got to be quite a bit of notoriety for the film.
And it works, doesn't it? It does pull the punters in, sadly. They see Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford on the bill, and all of a sudden everybody's intrigued and wants to know what this film's about.
Well, you say that, but this is now being chalked up as a box office flop.
Well, that's good. Good to hear.
You think so?
Yeah, of course, yeah. You don't want people paying good money to watch this kind of rubbish.
Could you find anything positive to say about it?
Daniel Craig.
That's it?
That's it.
Just the beauty of Daniel Craig.
That was the only way I could justify my £6 that I paid to go in, was to see that beautiful man strutting his stuff on the big screen. Pure.
Would you pay £6 to go into an abattoir and stare at kind of a shank of beef hung up on a meat hook?
Do you need me to answer that question?
I do.
The answer is no, Richard, I wouldn't.
Right. So that makes a nonsense of your argument.
No, it doesn't, because I don't see Daniel Craig in the way you see him, and he goes for the 99% of the rest of the people. He's a hunk of masculinity, and he's a beautiful, beautiful man.
He's a hunk of something.
He's a hunk of burning love.
If we swap genders briefly.
Yeah. Yes, I know what you're going to say now.
Well, of course, the love interest came in the form of the beautiful Olivia Wilde.
Absolutely.
Now, she would make for a great wife for a good, honest Christian. Let me tell you that. If she were my wife, Nathaniel, I wouldn't waste a single drop of my sperm.
Does Yvonne tune into these broadcasts, Richard?
She has no knowledge of this podcast.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, well, I can't deny your longings. She's a stunningly beautiful woman, and she would indeed make someone a good wife.
I must make a confession here, Nathaniel.
Go on.
When I came back from the movie, I did shed some sperm.
Thanks for that.
I was ashamed of myself, but I was overcome.
Did you get some masturbation mileage out of the beautiful Olivia?
You see, the way that I justify it, at no point did I use my hand.
Really?
No.
Yeah, the conversation is getting interesting.
I shed my clothes and clambered